Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Wednesday Wisdom. You already know how we do it here. There is like no frills. We just jump right in. This is going to be a very, very fun show for me because I am joined by someone who just reminded me that I've known them for 28 years. And for that time, it seems like we have been, as they say, coochie crunch for that whole time. She is one of my dearest friends. She is a soror hailing from the great state of Virginia, the city of Richmond, and she will tell you she is centuries and centuries and centuries of African here on these
Thousands of
United
years.
yes, here on these United States shores. She is my songbird. She is my fun person who we don't have to say anything, but we will just laugh. She is the Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis, sociologist, criminologist, and all things dope. Introduce yourself the way that you would like to introduce yourself to the people because I'm going to do what I want and you're going to do what you want.
Well, you matched it perfectly. So thank you so much. So I'm Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis, a community advocate, sociologist, and criminologist. I'm an educator. So I do this work everywhere because education is not only formal education, and we can talk about that also. And I
Yeah.
also do research. I specialize in qualitative research, but I also do quantitative research. I
Yeah.
am born and raised in Richmond, VA, RIC, product. My brothers and I, all four of us, product of predominantly Black Richmond Public Schools. And then I lived in North Carolina for 17 years.
Mhm.
And then I've been in Baltimore since 2019.
Yay. Oh,
What was that?
a pen cap. I just
Okay.
saw that.
But you had
No, I just hit myself in the face. Anyway, let's move on. So let's start with our shirts. So I'm not gonna tell y'all why I'm not a dirty person, but I was trying to get very beautiful for Kimi today, and I dropped some face oil on my shirt. So that's what that spot is. So I gotta get me a new shirt. But my shirt from the Kimya Nuru Dennis collection says, "Work is done everywhere I exist and persist." And at the bottom it says, "Nah, I mean," because you know what I'm saying. And then what? Tell us about your shirt.
So my shirt is about woke. So the
Ooh.
title of woke, stay woke, don't sleep, wake up, or you sleep. That's something that Black folks have said for generations, and a
Mhm.
collective of Black folks in particular. And
Yeah.
I always remind people, why do you think, for example, Spike Lee articulated this at the end of School Days? Wake up! And so this is why I challenge people. I
Okay.
want people to understand that if you're critiquing something regarding woke, you're critiquing this component of Black culture. Black culture is a full span all around the world. But if you're talking about Black people on the stolen land that forcefully became United States of America, we have a full span of cultures as well. So not every Black person in USA knows about the woke culture. But there's a reason why we have used that phrase since around the 1970s.
Yeah.
There's a reason why Spike Lee used that phrase. And so when you hear people who are conscious because of 2016 consciousness, conscious because of 2020 consciousness, and now they're criticizing woke, I ignore most people. There's a reason why
Yeah.
I ignore that, because that's not based on facts, it's based on new information. And I'm proud that I don't watch news channels and I don't pay attention
Yeah.
to social media hashtags, because that is not what education and knowledge is based on.
I love that. And I'm getting
Woke.
spammed right now on on, or where's that thing? What's that place called? Uh, YouTube. I got some people who are, internet trolls,
Uh,
writing all this crap. Uh, that can't even spell lobotomy. So I'm trying to block them, but
that's all right.
it's not letting me put them in timeout or block them.
Let them have their, let them, I
It's
mean,
fine. No, I'm going to ignore them, but I don't want that to overshadow. Like I want to. Some people do communicate via LinkedIn and other places, so I do want to, make sure that we get anyone's questions in, or I put up those um, interesting and important comments, and
mhm.
not this crap. So Kyle and Serena, yes, I'm shouting you out because I want you to know that before the end of the day, I will have found you and your real name. You don't know about me. Anywho, Moving
Nami,
along.
Nami, Nami.
Nami.
So yes, the wonderful sweatshirt that Kirsten purchased from the 365 Diversity line is in
Yes.
reference to doing work includes relaxing,
Yes.
resting, sleeping. It actually came from a conversation that we were having. It's like a lot of times, and specifically looking at this in terms of race interlocking with gender, as a lot of times as Black women, we're thinking that we have to always be doing something.
Mm-hmm.
And sleeping is doing something. So shout out to the sister who created Nap Ministry, the power
Yes.
of sleeping, because a lot of knowledge
Trisha, it's Trisha
comes.
Hershey or
Yes.
Hershey. Yeah, I have the
Yes.
book, but I have not had an opportunity to read it yet.
Yeah, Cite Black women, right? And
Yes.
so that's the power of understanding. And this also varies by cultures for thousands of years around the world that value the notion of take your butt to sleep. And the brainwashing of being awake and constantly working on something. And that's part of the industrial labor, an economic system that's based on just producing plenty of humans. People are miserable. They're not making money. And even if they are, they're working for every bit of it. And it's not built on wealth accumulation. And so that's why I also made that shirt. This whole notion that, look, I'm relaxing, chillaxing, in the galaxy laxing, and I don't feel the least bit guilty, because that's also an anti-Black, anti-African approach when they see Black folks relaxing and they're like, y'all ain't doing nothing. Well, do something and mind your own business then. How about that?
I know that's right. Mind the business that pays you. So one of the reasons why you put this on a shirt, and I'm going to pat myself on the back, is because you and I were having a conversation, because I was lamenting. I was in the book of Lamentations about, how I was like, I don't feel like I'm getting anything done, blah, blah, blah. And you said, girl, work is done everywhere that you exist and persist. And I said, what? I know that's right. So let's move on to your side of the shirt, your woke shirt. So wokeness, DEI specifically, I think they've moved past the critical race theory, which they weren't even talking. Critical race theory that they were talking about was actually history and not critical race theory. But we're not going to talk about that part. But woke ideology is under attack. DEI is under attack. We've got folks using no data, false equivalencies, nothing qualitative, nothing quantitative, to talk about these failures in government. These failures in organizations are based on them having DEI statements. So you got Silicon Valley Bank, with one Black board member, I think like 45% women or people who identify as women, and some veterans sprinkled in. I don't know why they put that on there, because veterans can fall into any other category, and then some folks from the LGBTQIA community. So there's that, and then today there was another thing that says, oh well, they donated money to Black Lives Matter, so that's why they went broke. But again, their charitable donations, BLM organization was one of them, but not the exclusive beneficiary of their charitable giving, which was actually matching what their employees were giving to people. But we'll move on from that. Norfolk Southern, same thing. You got a Congress person standing up saying that's the reason the trail derailed, because they hire people who aren't. And then you got all this merit-based hiring mess, which we could talk about that a little bit more in depth. And then the other one, Texas A&M University System, saying they're taking DEI statements out of hiring and emission statements and emissions. So, what's going on? Why is DEI under attack?
What's going on? 5 centuries.
Well,
I mean, this is just one thing I tell people. Why are people acting like this stuff is brand new? Black people have been leaders and trailblazers of 5 centuries of racial justice work that has been the groundwork for sexuality justice work, gender justice work, because we talk about thousands of years of gender justice, thousands of years of justice efforts regarding disability access.
Yeah.
We have socialism efforts, all sorts of efforts that have existed before the stolen land of the United States of America existed.
Yeah.
So these news stories are shock value, and the news stories are directed to people who don't know anything beyond what they learned in K through 12 and at their college. And this includes doctoral programs and medical degree programs that are not teaching factual information outside of a very European, cisgender, heterosexual, ableist, classist base of what's factual and what should be learned.
Okay.
So when people are shocked, I say, well, these problems will keep happening because you choose to be conscious when something slaps you in the face. Whereas any other day, you just chilling. And that's just how things happen. So I tell people, if you're stuck in acronyms, like I'm not of color. So people don't ever call me of color. Don't ever put me in an acronym of color. The work I do is thousands of years of African knowledges based, 5 centuries of Black justice works based. We are the foundation of affirmative action since the 1980s, but we have not been the biggest recipients of affirmative action. Instead, white people, including particularly white women, but white people with disability, are the benefactors of affirmative action since the 1980s. And we have generations of research regarding that in the social sciences as well. So Black people have been the trailblazers, but we've also been told every single day for centuries to been murdered, raped, tortured, harmed by schools, harmed by employers, harmed by every government around the world, for not following in line with the timeline and the version that everyone else tells us to use. I don't comply with anything that any people tell me to use. That's why people don't consider me professional. No, Dr. Dennis is not professional because that's the colonizer's version of professional. I'm not gonna, it's bad enough that I speak the language and other things that we have adopted over centuries, but I'm not going to be professional in the sense of signing off on oppression, pretending that we're collaborating, which is not the same thing as being controlled. I don't collaborate with controllers. So what's happening in Florida, that's typical. This is why I always tell people, why do you care about banned books? A book ban at school is not stopping you from having access at home, putting books on the corners of communities, and then Black folks, Indigenous people, and Asians walking in the schools with the books in your hand. What they gonna do to you?
Nothing.
And this is why I tell people, Black people have centuries of marching down streets, being killed by police, bitten by canine units, but people still celebrate marching down streets like that's a form of radicalism and revolution. There's been no revolution. Like Gil Scott Heron said, the revolution will not be televised because everything y'all seen on TV and hashtag on social media, that won't no revolution.
No.
It ain't no revolution. Why? Because you proud that you marched down the street, you cussed at a police officer, but yet all a school board needs to say is that they're banning a book and you're compliant.
Ooh.
All a politician needs to say is that they're banning something that they call DEI. Like, I don't care if it's called DEI. Why do you? You outrage. So what you really doing? That's change making. And I tell this to decision makers, superintendents, school teachers, medical and health professionals. I don't
HR recruiters.
I can't police anything because there's no such thing as a good cop. So we can't do anything to change that. We can just do something to improve preventive measures and resources so that we're less likely to rely solely on 911.
Okay.
But this is just the same thing. No matter where we are, it's the same routine. Black people in particular have been the trailblazers of this work for centuries. And we're told constantly at work, at school, everywhere to just coexist with the harms, to comply. And if we don't comply, we're unprofessional. They think they can find any insult, talk about how we look, talk about anything about us.
How we talk, our names.
How we talk, whether we're pretty enough for their standards. That's
where do you live?
Awesome. And unfortunately, there are millions of Black people who comply with that. So it's never going to stop. And that's the foundation of collectives of Black people who comply with that. And they see us as troublemakers. Well, damn right, I am a troublemaker because that's the whole point of a revolution. So yeah.
Well, you and I are both troublemakers, but we do come from different vantage points. Like
Mm-hmm.
I work in HR and recruiting. You work in the people that's telling HR and recruiting how to do their jobs better.
Because HR is not there for employees. HR protects the employer. So
correct.
Yeah.
So one of your offerings is offering measurable and lasting improvements to all of the things you mentioned: education, social and community organizations, and organizations who hire and who are supposed to be retaining people. We saw an uptick of, or maybe a light was shined for more people, because being in our bodies, like there's never a time we're not thinking about that or engaging that in some way. Our existence is that. So do you think that things got better, got worse, or stayed the same post this 2020 revolution? I'm using that word intentionally, knowing that it's not. So just so
I'm about to say revolution. Where was I? Good gracious.
You were on the phone with me.
I know. You were watching on TV.
Yeah.
I know. It just makes me think of the movie Nope. I love the movie Nope. I love Black folks movies.
The one with the one just came out last year, right? It was.
Yeah.
Okay, I saw that.
In the sky.
Kiki
right?
Palmer, yes, and the alien, yes.
Was it an alien? Dun, dun, dun. We don't know yet. We don't know. That's the whole point, right?
Gotcha.
So I bring that up because that is the mystery of thousands of years. Humans have existed for hundreds of thousands of years. So as long as you have humans in existence, we have what we talk about in the social sciences, categorical inequalities. Humans have never around the world been able to coexist without ranking things, whether it's the size of your hand. Now we got to talk about whose hand is bigger and what that's supposed to mean. Size of your foot. Head shapes, skull shapes became the origins. We talk about Dr. Cesar Lombroso as a father of positivism in criminology and in criminal justice, looking at contributing factors to criminality. So,
like the sloping forehead.
And then there are Africans and Asians and indigenous people who try to have a similar biological attributions to highlight differences. Like you can look at Dr. Leonard Jeffries' notion of sun people and ice people, which is not based on facts, but a lot of people celebrates those of us who are African. But none of that's based on factual information. So I bring that up and I bring up Nope, because humans will believe anything. Humans believe anything. Most people, including most people who are very, 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 very educated, including most teachers around the world, and most scientists around the world, and most medical and health professionals around the world, they'll pick the part that they find is most convenient, most suitable, and will reach the quickest outcome that they want.
Okay. And in organizations, would it, because I'm leading you here, and you know that. So in organizations, what is that thing that we seem to be clinging to, that quick fix that you don't subscribe to in any way, shape, or form?
There's so many. One is bias trainings that I hate with
that's where I was leading you.
Okay. I was trying not to fuss about bias trainings because a lot of people stopped talking to me years ago, because it turns out a lot of people made money from bias trainings, right? Now, mind you, the work I do is based in thousands of years of African knowledges and the origins of Black sociologists and criminologists, such as Dr. Anna Julia Cooper, Dr. W.B. Du Bois, and the list goes on. Long before this whole DEI, DNI, whatever they call it. Long before that.
Yes.
Yeah. So the whole bias trainings things, including implicit bias trainings, I tell people the two groups that harm us the most and kill us the most are the most common groups to be proud that they've done bias trainings. Who are those groups? Law enforcement and medical and health professionals. So a lot of times when I spent 10 years working with law enforcement, particularly Black law enforcement, because my hope was that Black law enforcement could distinguish us, knowing that they're good Black folks, but there's no such thing as being a good person once you put on that law enforcement uniform and you're following the policies and procedures without understanding that there's subjectivity in those policies and procedures. So yeah, so the bias trainings are scams. Implicit bias trainings are scams. I mean, look, people who are mad that I say that, you're going to still make money because people don't care about real changes. Whether the bias training is regarding helping people who are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, gender non-identifying, asexual, these bias trainings are not changing how medical and health professionals do medical degrees. They're not changing how medical and health professionals do career trainings and residencies.
Right.
I taught a health equity course, and I still teach sociology of medicine and sociology of mental health.
Right.
So people they're not really changing unless you require it. So these bias trainings, no matter how much money people are making by doing bias trainings, the outcome is still the same. People will lie to you and they'll say, yes, we're reaching people. Yes, we're teaching people.
Yeah,
and mess up data.
You're right. And a lot of it is a checkbox, to say that you did it, and that's, and I think that in some places, in some organizations, that's where the level of effort and the commitment goes. One of our other good friends and I were having a conversation today, Sarah Lee, as we call her, in the old Richmond days. We were having a conversation today because something keeps showing up on my Instagram that irritates my soul. Like I call this an HR person years ago, probably was 2019, might have been 18. I'm not really, I don't really remember because the last 3 years have kind of been squished together into one.
Yes.
But this person, is someone who is sought after to speak, talk about HR, talk about recruiting, has never been a recruiter. That's a different conversation. But, says some things and called us colored people. Yep. And, and there was a lot of it was a dust up on Twitter for that day. Cause we lose interest after a day or two. There was a dust up, and then every time it comes back up, I remind people, yeah, that's that person. Are we serious? Because they doubled down on it, went away for a second. And then, like I said, when the smoke cleared, they came back, and now they're back out there giving people advice. And one of the things I saw was they're talking about bias in recruiting. And I was like, I beg your pardon, So I sent a message to Sarah this morning, and I said, if I see the Colonel colored people talking about it one more time, I'm going to I'm going to lose it. And I say that to say Sarah said something profound because I went on my rampage. I said, people are only interested in inclusion and equity to the extent that it reaches a portion of their identity. Then anything beyond that, they don't have any interest in it, especially if there's going to be some discomfort, especially if there's going to be an opportunity for them to have to be quiet, listen, and not say anything, not respond. And she made the statement. I don't even think she knows how profound it is. Sort of like
it's gonna go on a shirt. It's gonna go on a shirt,
right? But sort of like how this came about. And the paraphrase is basically we should be moving away from anti-bias training to anti-racism training. And I was like, exactly that.
So can I go further into that though?
Yes.
So I don't do anti-racism trainings.
Okay.
Either. And this is one thing that's wonderful having a black family. Of course, my grandmother was half Blackfoot in terms of indigenous, but in terms of the people who are my family, we're 100% Black folks. We don't count the transatlantic slave rapists. And so coming from a family background where you're taught from generations of Pan-Africans, Black nationalists, Black activists, Black people who've been involved in communities, they will tell you that Black people have literally been doing racial justice trainings, and for white people, for overall outsiders, since the 1960s and 1970s. We've literally spent time defining racism, explaining the origins of racial categories that were created by Europeans who became racial categorized as white. So whenever people say race, that's an American thing. No, it's started in Europe for the purpose of changing the global trade, shifting religious colonialism, the foundation of transatlantic slavery, and it's the core of 5 centuries now. And it's all around the world. It's not just the United States of America. So I always encourage Black people to distinguish making money from making changes. I
time out. Listen, that'll preach. Did you just say separate making money from making changes?
Yes. And a lot of Black people have started complying with this notion that you've got to play the game. You got to play the game. You got to play the game. Well, okay, you're playing the game. But are you now just paying your bills, or are you giving back to your people? Because if you're playing the game just to focus on yourself and pay your bills, then you're not a change maker.
Ooh.
I don't want to see you walking around with the continent of Africa on your shirt talking about you're doing some things. Instead, you're actually helping outsiders and oppressors. They love to help you make money because 99% of anti-racism books, anti-racism trainings are designed for outsiders. They're designed to waste 2 hours defining racism using the Webster Dictionary definition. They're not even defining racism based on more than a century of Black sociologists have written about racism. More than a century of Black nationalists, African nationalists, Pan-Africans, scholars. We have millions of writings, most of them stolen, prohibited from being in libraries, books, school curriculum. A lot of us now, we scan and we upload it on the internet. You can find it around the world. But most people who are doing these racial justice trainings and overall anti-racism trainings, they're not reading real work. They're not presenting real information.
Okay.
They're presenting New York Times bestseller books. And I tell Black people, I'm not opposed to a bestseller book.
Yeah.
Because, for example, there's some bestseller books that are relevant because this topic has never been addressed before, such as the increasing amount of Black books regarding sexual variance, gender variance. That's important. We have more and more books regarding African sexualities, African gender variance that have existed for thousands of years. So I really love that.
Okay.
But we also have generations of books about the Mayflower in 1619. We have a lot of work out there that existed before the liberals and progressives decided, hey, we can claim to support this for an election. So I always tell Black people, I'm going to do some hip hop references, okay? Anyone
please,
ready? Okay.
Please.
So when you look at the origins of hip hop, the origins of hip hop was to kick Black knowledge, just like we talk about the origins of African musics for thousands of years, the origins of reggae. You can look at the origins of all of our people's music. If you look at the origins, we have entire documentaries about reggae. When you listen to the lyrics, you know, people depict, when we talk about cultural appropriation, including during Jim Crow, but all around the world, non-Black people stealing from us, stealing our hairstyle, stealing our style of dress, but they don't bother learning our sciences, mathematics, our forms of health and medicine. They'll steal it, which is why non-Black people tend to, and non-Asian people tend to make the most money from sage, incense, and candle shops. Like most indigenous people do not own those as well.
Right.
But they don't really want to learn the people who originated all of that. But this is where I no longer waste time preaching to the outsiders, because the outsiders are never going to stop oppressing. This is going to exist for the remainder of human existence. This is where I tell African/Black people, you have to focus on ourselves and each other. That's self-knowledge and development. learning more about thousands of years of our origins of knowledges that shipped around the world during global trade that happened before transatlantic slavery and since then. So I could go on forever about that, but that's just something that I explained. We can waste time preaching to the outsiders, but they literally want us to preach to them so that we don't focus on ourselves and each other.
So so we're gonna have to leave the business part of the conversation on this last question. What can organizations do? Because like, how do we get past the only doing anti-bias training, only doing programming in certain months, only thinking about it when it is what it is, like labeling something diversity hiring, but you don't hire anyone that is diverse. So there. So what can we do? What's one thing that we can do?
Stay on the job market.
Expound on that, please. Stay on the job market, meaning
never let
go
any
from different places.
Never let any employer own you.
Okay.
Because one way that schools and employers keep doing things in a harmful way is that they know that it could be poor working class employees, it could be middle class employees who are living paycheck to paycheck. The whole idea, especially when there's a struggling local, national, global economy, which is what's, that's the cry now. It's we're struggling for jobs. Well, guess what? Employers know when people are struggling for jobs. Therefore, they know that they can mistreat people. HR offices know they can mistreat people. When you think you're going to HR to file a complaint, it's just like going to patient advocacy office at a hospital to file a complaint about the doctor.
Oh.
That might work, but I recommend you contact a community health advocate like myself who actually specializes in health equity, because these places are not really there to help the people who are not in power.
Okay. So
we can
as an employee, that's great advice. But what about as someone working in HR, someone working in recruiting who is technically, the employer? Like, how do we push that work forward? How do we make measurable and lasting improvements? One way.
Well, you've already been told. All right, I just want grown folks to be honest. They've already been told how to do it. I mean, my personality. I just don't believe in circular logic.
Okay.
Decision makers, school superintendents, school teachers, school counselors, employers, they've literally been told they wasted people's lives on DEI committees, DEI trainings, anti-bias trainings. Why don't you write a proposal? Black folks, for example, have a century of writing proposals to schools, police departments, medical and health systems. These folks know. They literally know. It's that rhetorical, circular logic. It's tautological as well, to keep asking, what do we do? What do we do? It's a waste of your time, because what they're doing forever. Why don't you write us a proposal? You send it. Oh, I didn't get your email. Oh, maybe it's in your spam. That's how life gonna be. And it's gonna get worse with more technology access. So we can keep saying how to do it, but like literally they know how to do it. They care about keeping their job and getting excelled in their career. So this is why I tell people the work that I do, I never pretend that people don't know how to do this. Lash move, we ain't got nothing to prove. Lash move, we ain't got nothing to prove.
I'm kind of
like literally they know how to do this. So now this is why I specialize in doing evaluations and assessments, just like I did when I was full-time faculty for an academic program. People know. So now let's put it in action, because you will waste your entire life saying, what can we do? What can we do? What can we do? Instead, why don't you try doing what you've been told 1,000 times? And then start measuring for some outcomes. And if you're afraid that you're going to get fired for doing that, be honest. You don't really want to do it. Instead, you want to keep asking, what do we do? And so this is where I just tell people, everywhere I exist and persist, nah mean. this is the honesty that people have to distinguish real changes and real works from making money. Because when we talk about capitalism in terms of the mode of production and people building wealth, then we can talk about capitalism in terms of the exploitation of labor. So when employers are based on the exploitation of labor form of capitalism, they truly do not care about making changes from all of these trainings. They don't care about, even if we spend a year doing policies and procedure changes, they know that it's in writing, but nobody's ever going to do a quantitative and qualitative assessment. The decision makers will never be reviewed and evaluated before given a raise. The board of trustees, board of directors, all of this, the list goes on. And I have to tell medical and health professionals when they do fundraisers, let's be honest, these Black folks ain't see you before this fundraiser, but now you want people to run a march for suicide. But we ain't see you care about suicide 364 days. Now you care about suicide when we could donate to you all?
Whew. Listen, now that you just said that, I forgot to mention your company, Diversity 365 Diversity. Like, we were supposed to talk about that.
That's all right, because people who are outraged by what I said, they'll research me.
I don't care.
Now they want to test me, and the people who appreciate what I said will research me to learn from it. And I tell people, Black people, we've done this kind of work forever. People want to copy and paste what we say on social media to put it in their book. They want to copy and paste on what we say on social media to put it in their next training to get credit for having these thoughts. But I tell people, you can't steal from my knowledge. My knowledge is based on reading a lot of books that most of y'all ain't read one of them. My work is based on knowledges, and my work is based on community actions, when most people think community action is doing one donation or one event. We're talking about unpaid work for our own people. So people who think that they're stealing so they can get hired to do something just to get paid that's not really changing something, I'm never going to stop you from shining. You're stopping yourself from doing that because you're not really helping people. Ooh. And eventually, this whole notion of making money for nothing will expire. Yeah. And people will keep crying because hashtags don't matter. They already don't matter. Black folks have said they don't matter already. But give them a couple years, next election cycle, people will be like, changes have not happened. And we're going to be like, duh.
I'm not allowed to talk about that on the live mic right now because, it is what it is. But let's continue to have fun. I love you, and I thank you for not holding back and for giving me everything I needed. And I put this quote up, or a piece of it, measure for outcomes, because it kind of hit me in the right here too. And I'm going to say that because I think that I was taught to measure for causes. And we provide a lot of information as to why we need to be doing things. We provide people with the pain points, but we don't go as far as to offer our suggestions, offer the steps to improvements, and then come back and measure for the outcomes. So I thank you for that. We've got Dr. Christine De Jesus saying thank you both for sharing your brilliance. I know that's right. Thank you, Dr. Christine. And I'm going to call you Dr. Christine. So these trolls are still at it. I mean, do these people, do they have any lives? I don't know. Maybe it's...
Well, so you have to remember that, and I'm going to just speak about this in terms of real life. So what outsiders and oppressors do on social media mirrors what they've done for thousands of years regarding some identities and 5 centuries regarding race and ethnicity. So what you see on social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, they create a new name, whatever they do, and they're doing what they do at work. They also do these kinds of abuses at work, at school, anywhere where they could do it with a disguise. So they're expressing very common sentiments, and people will try to pretend that these sentiments are a result of a political party or a certain politician. But
it's not.
I really want grown folks to stop. I don't support any political party. I don't support any politician. They all are having the same scope. So don't ever see trolls, stalkers, terrorists and say, oh, they must be Trump supporters. Oh, they must be this. No, when it comes to race, they're all anti-Black, mostly white, and white includes various ethnicities, nations of origin, and religions around the world. They're people who could support your favorite politician. There are people who could be anti-fascist. There are people who call themselves Marxist. There are people who could be, anti-racist any other day. But the day when they see a Black person who is outspoken in a way that's uncomfortable and without a script and permission, that's when they're opposed to it. But I'm always going to be that because I'm based in the origins of African/Black work that does not wait for permission. So people are going to keep being mad. And when you're mad, that means you're really listening and you're thinking, but you cannot stop it.
I know, but I want to keep you safe. So there's that.
I'm safe.
Well, you've ridden out with me. So that's all. I would just leave it at that. Okay. I just want you to be safe.
Here's the thing. I can't live on fear because
it's not living on fear. I just said I want you to be safe.
People who want me to be safe, they better do what they have to do to stop the terrorists, because that's the core of xenophobia. When people think terrorism is happening elsewhere, like people in America think that terrorists are coming from outside America. Terrorism is centuries on this land.
Yeah.
Terrorism are the people who are harassing the people, and people want me to be safe. Well, then you protect us then. Don't say support Black women during election time,
Or Women's History Month.
Women's History Month. I don't want to hear that, because if any other time when outsiders harass me, you say, well, you should have not said that, or you should have chosen better wording. Black people regarding race, we have 5 centuries of figuring out a better way to say it so that white people don't hang us from trees. We've said it smiley. We've said it with a frown. Either way, white people have terminated us from jobs, hang us from trees, kicked us out of schools, called the police. It literally does not matter. It's not just in USA, it's in Canada, Europe, African nations, Jamaica, wherever you go, we're always told the onus and responsibility and blame is on us because we shouldn't have said, or we should have said, oppression, yay! I'm not going to be your Sambo. And I'm not going to be your Sambo for a bestseller book. I'm not going to be your Sambo to be hired by LinkedIn to do trainings. I'm not going to do any of that because you're never going to find me being a hypocrite to make money. I'm a change maker.
Yes, you are.
And that's just what I
do. If
I am not responding to you, but directly, I'm saying in general.
No, I know. I said that's why you're here. But now I'm feeling guilt because we've got people that have been being extremely.
Let them express. This is their.
I know, but my mom. I be trying not to curse on my show in a bad way because my mama does watch it and I respect her.
So can I give you another example? So before I got banned from LinkedIn in 2020, and I got banned because white LinkedIn and their token supporters were outraged that I expressed racial variance among sexuality variance and gender variance. Okay. And I was outspoken about racial issues because I don't wait for like a topic to be banging on the news stations before a topic is real. Right. So that's when I got banned. But right before I got banned, there was a white man who was gay on LinkedIn who I was trying to help because he was feeling suicidal. And when I told him that my help needs you to actually go to a support group, then he started calling me racial slurs. So, but I bring that up because I just want to highlight that as an aggregate, African/Black people have been very generous. We've been very patient. We help people. If we specialize in health, we help people across the full span of identities and experiences. Yeah. Even when it comes to race, being pro-Africa, pro-Black does not mean we're anti anyone else. But people interpret it that way. So therefore, when we tell them no, like your wonderful sweatshirt, no, that I bought from you. When we tell people no, when we tell outsiders no, when we tell non-Black people no, they get offended because no matter their socio-political stance, they're still taught since childhood that they are our saviors. That includes conservatives, Republicans, liberals, progressives, anti-fascists, Marxists. They all are taught that they are our saviors. So therefore, if we don't allow them to intrude and invade, if we tell them mind their own business, then they get to say whatever and they get to punish us however. So that's why I don't pay too much attention, because literally it's always going to be that way. And it's intended for me to just silence a little bit, change it a little, dress it up. And that takes too much from me and I refuse.
All right. Well, I'm going to take your advice and
ignore people. They want attention. That this is their claim to fame, because they send emails, phone calls, and they're like, yeah, she mentioned me during that live. So this is their live, and they're going to go back to work in the office. Some of them are CEOs. Some of them are medical doctors. Some of them are police officers. I'm so proud of them. Yes.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the funner portion of our conversation. Yay, it's Women History Month, and I want to try and keep a woman focus on it, whatever that means to you. Mm-hmm. If you were, or what TV or movie character gives you a glimpse of Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis, Dr. Dude Guy?
Oh, Dr. Dude Guy. Let's see what character. There's so many. Okay, so I do watch Tyler Perry's Sisters.
Oh,
it got better this season. They are really wilding out.
Okay.
So, by the way, 9:00 Wednesday nights
tonight.
And hopefully BET will become Black owned again, because there are wealthy Black celebrities who are petitioning to get that happen. All right. Yes. So anyway, I think that so this is an example of kind of the show Girlfriends. Your girlfriends, where it's kind of like you're like all of them combined.
Oh, so you're all of them.
I feel that way about Girlfriends and about Tyler Perry's Sisters, like different components of the personality type. Like when you're on the job.
Who are you on the job? Andy?
Are you talking about Girlfriends or Sisters? Sisters, yeah. I forget people's names. Oh. Andy's the
attorney.
Yeah. So in that sense, I'm more informal, but I would say Andy is informal in the style of dress. I love Andy.
Okay.
And I'm also similar to the sister who is worked at the bank until they got arrested.
Yes.
See, I know.
Can't think of her name.
I know. This episode this evening is going to be very profound, though.
Okay. So
no speakers, but yeah.
You are an amalgamation of the characters from Girlfriends and
Sisters.
And Sisters. So would you say, and I know I'm taking some liberties here, speaking of Girlfriends, are you more Tony Childs or are you more Joan Clayton?
Oh, I think I'm goofy like Joan Clayton. I'm not Tony Clouds was my favorite character at the time.
Okay.
But sometimes she was annoying. Joan Clayton's annoying too.
Yes.
But I think I'm more, I guess we all have annoying components of our personality. So yeah. But yeah, having a sense of humor is big for me. So I don't live a professional life, because I think life is really too short. You lose a lot when you wake up professional, walk around professional, go to sleep professional. How do people think about me? What are they thinking? There are people who like you who you had no idea like you. There are people who hate you who you thought loved you. And that includes colleagues.
No, that's right.
That includes colleagues. And that's why I also encourage Black people to have, whether it's meditation or a Black mental health counselor, having someone who you can speak with virtually in person, because it really puts things into real life perspective. Because so many people, and this is regardless of your occupation, so many people have been taught to shape their self-identity and their life based on what does so-and-so think? What does grandma think? What does so-and-so, what does my boss think? They might not be thinking about you, or they don't like you. Does that really determine your existence and your purpose? And that's just one thing we constantly have to think about. So I think that the characters on both shows, Girlfriend and Sisters, show that struggle of figuring out when they do something that's messed up, they're like, that was messed up.
Yeah.
both shows are really honest. So people like they try to be a know-it-all, but they in retrospect they're like, okay, I can change that for the future. And I think that's important for Black women for every day and not just Women's History Month. I don't believe in such thing as strong Black women. I think that's actually quite condescending and very insulting. I also look at that in terms of the notion of us being mammies and breastfeeding white babies during slavery. I see that in terms of, Sarah Bartman, who was called Hottentot, this notion that we have to be strong despite anything happening to us. And so I don't support that. So I'm not a strong Black woman. Instead, I'm someone who I do what I do. I feel how I feel whenever I want to feel it. I don't explain it away unless I'm explaining emotions and mental health and physical health to Black people. I don't, or to my medical professionals, of course. I don't ever feel like I have to impress people. Like, I'm impressing you today. How do I look? How do I seem? Am I speaking proper English that was forced upon me because of slavery? Like, that just takes too much energy that I refuse.
What accent was that?
I think that was like British mixed with Scottish.
Are you sure? No, just teasing.
I'm proudly not sure. Like I tell people, I'm proudly not speaking multiple languages that are outside of Africa.
Oh, Jesus.
I mean, unless it's African origins, then I probably do not speak them. I do not learn them. And this includes Spanish colonizers.
Kimya, let's move on. What is your go-to song? So you dropped some songs.
Okay.
You dropped La Shmoo, and I thought for sure you were going to talk of, your favorite rappers, Eric B. and Rakim.
Yes.
And
mm-hmm.
and Smith and Wesson.
Yes,
your favorite group. But
followed by Camp Lo, number 2 Camp Lo.
Followed by Camp Lo. I apologize. But again, speaking of someone who identifies as a woman, what would be your go-to song or music when you want to hype yourself up?
Gosh, I hype myself up all the time. So let me see.
Okay.
So I listen to a lot of reggae, but I think like the hype for me, Nikki D.
Okay.
A lot of people don't know who Nikki D is, but
spelled Nikki or
Nikkid. So Nikki D, shooting the gift, let it off, shooting the gift, letting off steam. Back when Nikki D was on Def Jam.
Okay.
And I didn't last long enough on Def Jam, unfortunately. So a lot of times when I'm like letting off steam, getting prepared, I'm doing some shooting the gift, letting off steam.
Mm-hmm.
Lauryn Hill, Rod Digga, MC Lyte, Queen Latifah. Yes. I love local artists.
Okay.
And some of whom have YouTube channels. I support. Yeah, so a lot of times people will send me music because they know I have my list of goats. And then, I'm going to advertise music. So like when you see me on Instagram, I post a lot of reggae tracks.
You like gospel music too? Or
I do like gospel music, especially old school gospel. My favorite singer is Mahalia Jackson.
Yes.
So Mahalia Jackson is my favorite singer. So of course I come from a family of vinyl records, and we all have record players and vinyl records.
Nice.
So playing Mahalia Jackson, and of course she helped raise Aretha Franklin. A lot of folks don't know that part of Aretha Franklin's voice comes from also being co-trained by Miss Mahalia Jackson.
And now we know.
Yes. And so this is an example, though, when we talk about African musics across religions and spiritualities, because there's so much a common denominator in terms of how we sing, how we dance, how we express this. We can look also at origins during transatlantic slavery, how we sang messages like hands on the plow, eyes on the prize, hold on, look into the stars, meaning there's a message. The message could be that you think it's from the higher power that was forced on you by the slave owners, or you can think it's a higher power in terms of escaping the plantation.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
So we're at the top of the hour. I know you got other things to do.
No, I'm absolutely fine.
Well, come on then. Let's go. All right.
So and they still love you. I'm here.
Oh, they don't love it. They don't love me. I'm going to get hate. I'm going to get mail, and I don't care because I talk to who I want to talk to when I want to talk to them. what's the best piece of career advice you never took or that you took later in life? And why is it something that I said? I'm just teasing you.
You're so funny. Oh, so there's so much. So I will say there's two things. One, when I was still full-time faculty in North Carolina, it was actually career advice that one of my Black students received from a Black woman who was giving career advice. And I actually took that in. So the career advice was to not narrow yourself, to not feel like you have to just choose one thing. And when I was full-time faculty, I still spent most of my time in communities. That's how I started focusing on health issues and doing community events. And so it was it's exhausting, of course, but it really just inspired me more and more to stop trying to narrow the focus, because the narrowing thing was for everybody else. Everybody else's approval, everyone else. And it happens now. Like now, a lot of times in community work, people be like, but you're this. And of course, my colleagues in academia are like, but you're not this anymore. And I tell people the wonderful thing about existence and living is that I did not request your signature on this form. It's like,
I love that.
I mean, people on various experiences, they act like you met them to sign like this permission slip to go on the trip. Like, dude, I'm here working to help our people. I'm here to teach as a professor. The whole span of it that does not make sense to you, you perhaps should spend time focusing on what you're specializing in, because I probably know more than you know. So you might want to just ante up. Trap that fool. Okay. Hit him. Okay.
Sorry.
So that's one of the advice. And the other one is just a reminder from, of course, fellow Black sociologist and criminologist and Pan-African, Dr. W.B. Du Bois, who, when he wrote The Souls of Black Folks, he talks about the double consciousness. Mm-hmm. And of course, Dr. Anna Julia Cooper, when Dr. Cooper wrote about A Voice from the South, was talking about Black women's experiences. Okay. And so talking about these dueling identities, and of course, Paul Laurence Dunbar also addressed dueling identities. So those are also reminders that we don't always have to be the most outspoken, because that's a very exhausting thing. A lot of people are lazy. Many people are not paying attention. They just want to make money, whatever the case may be. Sometimes we just have to know a space where people are not going to make changes regardless. So that could be a space where we keep quiet, we do what we do, and we move on.
I like that too. I like that. We don't always have to be the most outspoken.
Yeah, because as Black people, and particularly Black women during Women's History Month, we have been hoodwinked, bamboozled, led astray, brainwashed to be the spokespersons.
I don't think people get that.
They don't. Well, if they don't know Malcolm X, then they're probably the same people who only quote Martin Luther King Jr. when it comes to
I Have a Dream.
I Have a Dream, that does not critique the outsiders. But anyway, so a lot of times we became the spokesperson, and so I noticed that when I still lived in North Carolina as faculty, that when I was doing like all these health trainings, that outsiders, I don't have to specify their race, but people can figure out who the outsiders are. They would come to me during lunch break. They'd be like, "Thank you so much for saying that." And they would complain about fellow outsiders. And then I had to realize these outsiders are thanking me as a Black woman, but meanwhile, they are very silent. They're not speaking out about problems. So they're not messing up their job.
No, of course not.
They're not offending anybody. I'm the offensive Negro, basically. And so after a while, I just had to be like, okay.
Sometimes you don't have to say anything.
Don't say them. And that includes when other Black folks aren't saying anything. I'm going to leave anyway. Y'all going to be the ones here still. So y'all don't want to say anything. I can't say something for you. And there have been times in trainings, health trainings, all these things I did for years, where the Black people would speak up to defend the outsiders.
Yeah, well,
to speak on the outsiders' behalf, to protect them. So I tell people racial justice work for 5 centuries does not mean we're anti anyone else. So the
Right.
fact that people feel like they have to defend the outsiders as if we're hanging them from trees and we're burning down their houses and burning down crosses and stuff, it just highlights how these problems are going to persist for the remainder of human existence. So for our own mental health and physical health, we just have to figure out what bits and pieces we're going to contribute without going into every space. Like you in a grocery store, you see
Ooh.
something happening, I'm picking up my mango and I'm bouncing, because like every space can't be me fighting the power. I got to fight the power, Chuck D. You know, I fight the power. Some places, like a few years ago here in Baltimore, I was wearing my Police the Police shirt on, and this outsider man saw me at a store and he started preaching to me about the goodness of police. And, after a while, and people did not defend me. They did not tell him to shut up. It was just me, an outsider, with my Police the Police shirt on. And I have a whole lot of addressing
You
police.
do. I think you might have a better graphic tee collection than even I do. And I'm the queen of graphic tees.
But, these are to express messages, but also graphic shirts with messages also have to mean that you're doing something, right? So it means that we've been on committees. I've been on board of directors with police departments. I've co-trained police departments. I've hired police to teach my courses when I still was faculty for the criminal studies program. So that's the double consciousness, the dueling identities that we have. We've known how to collaborate, coexist, speak up when necessary, but there are times where collaborations, it's okay to check no, like your shirt says, right?
No.
Check no.
Next opportunity, me, please.
Yeah, and if I'm around a bunch of cowards, and when I say cowards, I'm not talking about people who need a job because they're struggling and they need this. That's not coward. Those are people, Black folks in particular, and Indigenous people and Asians who come from struggling backgrounds. That's not cowardly. That's needing resources. But cowards are people who have plenty of resources and they just gonna keep kissing butt to get where they go, and then they're gonna be in charge of DEI. When they get there, they'll be like the director of DEI. They won't even mention that they oppressed people to become the director of DEI. They silence that part. Ooh. But you know what? When that happens, I'm no longer the one to highlight that, because these people know what they're doing. And this is why I tell Black people, I don't want to hear you use the phrases originated by outsiders. Code switch, imposter syndrome, phrases presented by psychologists, for example, who are not Black. Instead, learn the origins of double consciousness. Read The Souls of Black Folks, written by Du Bois. Right. Read Dr. Anna Julie Cooper's A Voice from the South. You can find both of these for free online, PDF, full books. Also, read Paul Laurence Dunbar. Read the book, A Spook Sitting Next to the Door. I post a lot of this on social media. I'm part of Pan-Africans, who we post a lot of free knowledges so that people know you can find the library, bookstore, even if your school bans it. I don't care about bans. I truly don't care about bans, because we still have this information. I will give it to my people for free.
All right. So speaking of giving people information, I thought you have given me a good number of things, like the oil that's on my shirt right now. You led me to things, for to get this more manageable for myself. You always tell me good music. You always tell me what books to read, like you just did. You always tell me where to shop and what brother I should be supporting, especially in your local area. So I gotta give you big ups for that. Like Baltimore, like you are the Baltimore directory for all things. You are.
I'm learning. I'm a newbie. What I defer to is Black Baltimoreans. So people born and raised in Baltimore, and I get information from Black. So I got to defer to Black Baltimoreans.
But you pass it down.
Yes,
you do. So what's one of your favorite, finds, or, newest finds, and where can we, indulge in it? Whether it's vendor for apparel, whether it's for food, whether it's for music, for knowledge, books, and the like. What's something that you want to leave us with today?
Yeah. So what I refer people to is Black Etsy. That's one thing I want to highlight there.
There's a Black Etsy?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
So here's what I recommend. And so by the way, since the beginning of COVID, since I don't travel during COVID, except if I'm going home to Richmond, Black Etsy has gotten a lot of my money. So when you
Okay.
go to Etsy, you can actually type in Black Etsy and you can find Black owned, but you still want to click on it and make sure it's really Black owned, because that's
Yeah.
one issue for generations is non-Black owned companies claiming to be Black owned and producing products. Similar to when you, in every city, most Black hair salons and shops are Asian owned. So it's the same kind of thing when you go to Etsy.
Oh,
You got
okay.
to click on it and make sure that it's actually Black owned. So that's what I say. If you want virtual purchases, that's where I get a lot of my earrings.
Yeah, can you send me those? I love those.
No, these are mine, but I have duplicate ones I might send you that because I don't wear the duplicates. Okay. Also, there's a sister who makes the woven, I should have worn that. It's a woven hat and matching earrings. So I bought it in the Pan-African colors, the red, golden ring, which also, Rastafarian reference to Ethiopia. So things like that, I had to stop myself from buying so much. But
Okay.
so that's one
All
thing
right.
I do. Also in Baltimore.
Go ahead. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna mention Baltimore. It's a predominantly Black city still. It's I appreciate Black Baltimoreans doing everything that they are trying to do. There are a lot of wonderful restaurants here. And I will say in the county, there's now a new Jamaican spot.
Okay.
It's named Konoko Jamaican Restaurant on Honeygo Boulevard. So it's in the avenue right across from White Marsh Mall. So it's in White Marsh area. So a couple of friends and I went there a couple of weeks ago because I was skeptical, because I was like, this is the county area, but
you enjoyed it.
Yes, it's more costly, so it's a different ambiance. So it's a wonderful DJ on the weekends, but it's not like a club thing. So I went in there slow wine, and they're good with me slow wine as long as I sit down and order. So
as long as you don't get up on the table.
Yeah, it's not a Jamaican club. It's a restaurant. Very wonderful food, wonderful green tea. So Konoko, I love the scene.
Spell it.
Konoko. Konoko. And it's in White Marsh, Maryland, which is, of course, Baltimore County. So it's not far from, you take the Bella Road areas and all that stuff. And it's across the area from White Marsh Mall. So Konoko is wonderful, wonderful Jamaican DJs playing my favorite old school Jamaican tracks. So I'm required by law to walk in and slow wine to my old school Jamaican tracks.
I'm not sure that that's a requirement by law, but
when you walk in, you see art of Bob Marley. So that's the largest art.
You love Bob Marley too.
I do. Well, I went to his, estate. Of course, Kendra, Dr. Jason, and I saw Ziggy Marley in concert years ago. And that demographic was quite interesting.
Were you at school when Rita Marley came to speak?
No.
Or was that was my freshman year then?
That was your first year.
Oh, I'm sorry y'all missed that. Oh, too bad.
We saw George Clinton.
Yes,
I've seen George Clinton 3 times in concert. Yeah. 3 times George Clinton.
I forgot about the George Clinton concert. That was epic.
Yeah. And now, George Clinton is almost 80 now. So he'll tell you, he said, I don't dress like that no more. I don't party like that no more. But he still does concerts. I've seen him twice since then. So so there's Bob Marley art when you go into the Jamaican spot. So I do recommend people go in there. It's good food, good ambiance. So that's the newest spot. It opened maybe a month ago now.
And then for the non-trolls, where can folks find you, and what's some things you want to highlight of what's up next, et cetera?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So people who actually want to do real work, first of all, I'm not easily punished. So people who want to punish me, I'm going to be having all-nighters on that one, sleep deprived and everything. But in terms of people who want work, you can find me on Linktree. So that's Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis on Linktree, which will take you to my website, which is 365diversity.com. You can find me on Instagram. I have some things on YouTube. And on my website, so all of it can take you to my website. So on my website, it outlines the work that I do. So I always highlight that I'm not, I use the term 365 diversity, as I explained many years ago when I first started doing all of this. 365 is every day. Diversity means that it's not DEI, DNI, anti-racism, whatever catch coolie phrases people use any given moment. It's the full span of our people. I don't care what terminology people think is more appropriate at any given moment. I'm not going to waste time keeping track of that.
Okay.
So you will just see a full description of everything. You'll see some photos. You'll see links. You can also find my resume for people who want to learn more about some of my background. You can also find previous recordings of podcasts, and also when I do the community epilepsy events.
Yes. And you have a good amount of your scholarly work on there as well. People can get information about the types of coursework that you offer, the types of trainings that you do offer, and links to those. So your website is, I saw you up that you did refresh it, and it looks really good. So
yes. So, and my website,
I need to do the same. You're inspiring me.
So my website is very simple. Like one attempt that people have tried over the years to insult me is say, your website is simple. Well, guess what? Those of us with disabilities, we actually need simple websites. I have a brain condition. And years ago, when I still was in North Carolina, one of my mentors advised me, people with disabilities, whether it's a brain condition, eye condition, hearing condition, we don't need a lot of tabs. We don't need a lot of bright colors. So that's why a lot of it's very basic. And that's why when I went to GoDaddy to get the website, I told them I needed to be something easy, not a lot of tabs. It's enough that people have to click links.
Yeah.
But, you know, it has to be simple. And so as a professor, that's also what I do with my students. I have information right then and there for my students with different health conditions, because learning is difficult enough. You don't have to figure out every tab to click. So I tell people with websites, if your website is complex with a lot of things to click, people who have disabilities are going to find it, but now they're going to have to take a break perhaps before they actually receive the information.
That's great information. Thank you for sharing that. All right, Kimmy, stay on, but I'm going to let everybody else go. I want to thank you again for being such a dynamic guest. You were going to come anyway. I was going to make you. So you didn't have the option of saying no, but you know, thankfully you didn't. I appreciate you, all that you shared. Again, please do reach out to Kimya if you need any assistance with a wide variety of things, 365 diversity related. And also check out her Instagram, because it's actually pretty dope. She's got a lot of dynamic pictures and videos on there that I enjoy watching. I'm always sharing them too. But come back next week. We're going to continue the Women's History Month conversation again, 2:00 p.m. live on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. My special guest will be the people-centric HR leader, author, Christy Engler. So come back. We will see you next week. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.